Welcome back to another mindset coaching session with John Laufenburger. This is session number 3. So, John, welcome. How are you doing today?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing good this morning. It's good to be back.
Amazing. Well, I'm happy to have you back. I know we had a couple of sessions previously, and we talked a lot about what it is that you're looking to do. You talked about your job, and your desire to possibly want to start coaching. And we kind of debunked and unraveled a few limiting beliefs you had around coaching and when to start and the value that you feel like you can bring to being a coach and bringing value to other people. So I'm just wondering, where are we now? How are you feeling about those conversations and what's changed?
I'm a lot more confident after our conversation of I've decided that I do want to start now or at least start preparing for it instead of waiting for more life experiences or making excuses of the young age. So I've 100% confidently say that I'm ready to do it. So since our recording, I've kind of just been like brainstorming on, who can I coach now? Who am I qualified to coach now? And so just kind of putting a game plan together so that we can get this started sooner than rather than later. So it's such an exciting feeling of like starting something new.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And how good does it feel when we actually land on a decision? Because I think sometimes the most painful and uncomfortable place to be is in that, like, I'm not sure, or I don't know. It's the gray zone where we struggle. But once we make that decision, and it sounds like you had made the decision after weighing your pros and cons of starting now or waiting and starting later, at least at that point, once we've decided, we no longer exert our energy on, the ambiguity and the uncertainty.
100%. I being in that gray zone, it just brought a lot of anxiety and stress, and it's just you're stressing about something that hasn't even happened yet. And so just like deciding on something now just takes so much weight off your chest, and then there's more like passion and fire because you want to do it. At least for me. So it's just been such a great feeling now that I haven't felt that gray area.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. I agree. And that happens to me too. So one of the greatest ways we can reduce anxiety is really to just decide what you want to do and then put all your energy, effort, and focus into moving that forward. So, okay, so today is our third session, and
Mhm.
I am wondering, like, what's top of mind for you? What have you been thinking about that you'd like to bring into our coaching?
I think I've been thinking about more just like my game plan on like how to get started. Who am I qualified to? I kind of have an idea after having some conversations with other people. I kind of have an idea of who I want to coach now, like if I was to start now.
Mhm.
And so it's just kind of been putting the game plan together. I kind of want to work with kids that are similar to my age, so like college students, high school students, younger elementary school students. I'm really passionate about like people that are going through like a hard time at home, that are dealing with bullying at school, people that are just kind of feeling counted out. I really want to target that audience because that's something I went through. So I just want to help people go through the things I've already went through. So that will be my age area. I guess my thing is how do I get started? Like, how do I get like a speaking arrangement for these kids and for these students? And so it's just really trying to put the game plan together and figure out how can I take action now.
Right. Okay. So it sounds like you're looking to kind of walk away with like a game plan on what you need to
Hmm.
be doing. What's so important about that for you in terms of having that game plan in place?
It's just having a game plan in place to be able to take that next step. It's something I've just never done before. I've never like really reached out and set up something like this before. So it's definitely like a little bit of like a little bit of a nervous feeling, just doing something you haven't done or being uncomfortable doing something, and not knowing what that next step is or how to like do it correctly. So I guess I'm just more overthinking that part than actually just doing it. I'm sure if I just did it, then I'm sure I can get something out of it. So it's just that overthinking part.
Yeah. And do you feel like if you had the game plan in place, it would reduce some of that anxiety and overthinking for you if you like Like, what is like when you say game plan, is it like a physical, notebook product, something that's kind of laying out what it is that you need to do? Or like, I'm trying to just understand, like, when you say game plan, what does that look
Mhm.
like in a physical sense?
Just knowing like what can I do to reach out to like schools or how to do it properly. It's just something I haven't done before. So putting like a game plan together, like on paper, on like, how should I reach out? Like, should I do it like via email, call? Like, how should I reach out? Be able to reach out and actually successfully set up something for that. So just having that whole game plan put together. That way I kind of have like something to reference to reach out.
Right. Yeah. No, that's great. And if you were to walk away with that game plan by the end of our session today,
Mhm.
what would signal that you've been successful in having the game plan that you need to start executing?
Probably just having the game plan together just to know how to do it, and just being confident in it.
Mhm.
You can have the perfect game plan, but I guess if you don't have the mindset to actually take action, then it wouldn't really matter because then you never actually do it.
Yeah.
Um, so that would be on my part of things. So I guess just having that game plan and then just counting on me to actually do the action and reach out to schools and setting up something so I can start spreading my message to these students and to these kids.
Yeah, for sure. So it kind of sounds like it's kind of two part in that like it's nice to have an actual game plan of what you're going to do next, but also have kind of a mental game plan of getting yourself set up for the confidence and the mindset that you need to actually execute on the game plan and feel confident doing it.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Okay, great. Okay, that's great. Wonderful. So then let's get into it. Where are you now in terms of some of the thoughts that have been swirling around for reach outs and how you're going to connect with other people? Like, what are some ideas that you've already come up with?
So I think the one that would like I guess would like most likely get me landed for a speaking event or as for a speech in front of students is going to my previous schools I've already been through. So going back to my old elementary school, my old middle school, and then my two high schools I went to. Um, so I've thought about just because they're more of a warm environment because I've already been there.
Mhm.
And so I've thought about like where to start. Yeah, I don't know like how to like approach it. It's like what do I say? Like do I say like do I have this message I would like to spread to these kids? Like I have this message or I have this passion to help these kids with these things. So I guess it's just more like how do I approach it with like the principal or the school district. So it's more of the approach to it and how to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, those are some really, really great questions. And sometimes it's nice to be able to sort of reverse engineer something. So it's like, okay, how do I communicate this? Okay, what's the message? Like, what's the message that you're looking to share with these kids? And if we were to build out that message, what could that message look like? And then reverse engineer it so that once you have the message and you know what you want to say, you know what's on your heart, you know how you
Mhm.
want to serve, it almost makes it a lot easier to communicate what it is that you're trying to do once you've actually done it. So
That
wh-
is true.
when you think about like, okay, if you were to sort of visualize yourself standing in the gym addressing these kids, what comes to mind in terms of what's on your heart?
It's something that I found out recently, the message that I really want to spread to these kids. And I really want them to feel okay. And I want them to feel confident with standing out and with being different. I used to think it was the biggest curse of my life of not being able to get into like the popular kids or not be able to fit in with everybody else. But now that I'm older and I've like, like I've gone into self development, I've realized that standing out is actually the best thing that's ever happened to me. Like I'd rather be in the 1% than the 99%. And
Mhm.
so I really want kids that are going through those, like start getting that idea or start feeling confident in themselves being different because that's actually a good thing rather than fitting in with everybody else. So I really want to spread the message on like with the kids that are feeling left out that it's it's a I wouldn't say a good thing, but like it's okay to be different and it's okay to stand out. Like you should be confident in yourself with that. So that's like one of my main messages. I have other ones, but that's just one of the main messages that's been on my heart lately.
Yeah, absolutely. And why do you feel that it's important for kids to know that it's okay?
I because I've been through it. I've been through like my entire high, elementary school, middle school, high school. I chased the feeling of trying to fit in, and it's the worst feeling in the world. Like being felt rejected or being left out, and it ruined a lot of my experiences. And it wasn't their fault; it's my fault on how I looked at myself. And so I want kids to be able to be okay with it because I want them to have the best experience of their life. I want them to be able to be confident in themselves because a lot of the things that I struggled with through school carried on into my adulthood, and it's something that I struggled with for a long time. With uh, doing the people pleasing and trying to fit in. And so the sooner I can get these kids to be confident in themselves, especially when they get into that adulthood, like they'll be more confident in what they can do and in themselves, and feel comfortable in their own skin. Because for the longest time, and even to this day, I still sometimes don't feel comfortable in my own skin. And so I want them to be able to get that feeling early on, because I know that's an important part of their life of learning and experiencing life.
Yeah, I mean, you put out some really important points around, the importance of kids getting this information early and knowing that they're, being different is okay. And I think as adults, we start to realize that being different is actually our superpower because it's
Hmm.
the sameness that ends up being like when you're just like everybody else, you don't stand out. And when you don't stand out, it makes everything exponentially more difficult to accomplish, especially if you've got the entrepreneurial spirit or you've got the desire to help other people. So how can those people find you if you're not connecting with them,
Yeah.
those people that feel connected to you, based on your life experience. So those are some really great reasons and insights that you've linked between your own experience and wanting to help kids, maybe not go through the similar experiences or equipping them with
Hmm.
the knowledge they need. Yeah.
Yep.
So when you're thinking about like, how do I reach out or what do I say to, the people that administer these schools? Because it sounds like your ultimate outcome is that you want them to invite you into the schools so that you can do this type of work. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So then let's go to like some of the questions that you had at the beginning, which is like, how do I communicate? What do I say?
Hmm.
Um, what what do you feel is lacking in clarity around how you're going to present yourself or present what you want to bring to those schools?
And I don't know. I'm trying to think like, is it clarity or is it just my low self confidence? um, yeah, I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure. I guess I'm overthinking the whole part of like reaching out. Like, what do I say or how do I approach it? Like, what can I say to like help me like become more successful on landing the spot than them turning me down. Guess I've just been overthinking that part.
Yeah, and you know what? Let's go there because sometimes not knowing what to say is actually rooted in low confidence or
Hmm.
just thinking that like what if they say no, is there rejection, right? Like sometimes it's rooted in other fears that we have, but we don't think about those fears and we're sort of just thinking like, oh, it's more tactical or it's more like trying to figure out like what's the right game plan, what's the right script, what's the right,
Hmm.
but really ultimately like let's go to that confidence thing. How confident are you in almost selling yourself and like it's almost a pitch, right? Like you're coming to them with a service, right? Speaking,
Hmm.
and what you're selling is you're selling your knowledge, your expertise, your experience, right? It's you're selling an experience to them to be able to give that experience to the students so that they can learn from you. How
Hmm.
confident are you in like moving forward and actually putting yourself out there, regardless of if they say yes or no. how confident are you in just putting yourself out there and doing it?
I guess not too confident. I think I overthink. I think now that I think about it, I think one of the biggest things I'm overthinking as well is my message going to be like, is it the right message for these kids? And, am I the right person to teach these kids on that message? And so I think that's my low self confidence part that's like kind of holding me back from reaching out. Because if I guess I think about it in two ways. If I get rejected, I feel like maybe my message wasn't as powerful enough, or maybe I don't have the right message. And then if they say yes, then I'm like, okay, now that I have this like spot to do it, is my message going to be the right message for these kids? And so, and am I the right person to teach it? So it's like both ways. I'm kind of low self confidence on either answer, which I'm like, I hate that I'm an overthinker like that.
And that's okay. Sometimes, like a lot of people are overthinkers. And you know what? Sometimes it helps us better prepare, right? And then sometimes it actually is to our detriment, right? It's how do we take control of the narrative, right? So, am I the right person? Okay, that's a really great question. John, are you the right person? What makes you think that you're the right person? And what makes you think you're not the right person? So let's start there because sometimes like, if we actually answer our own questions, right, we actually reduce our overthinking because overthinking only happens because we're on the surface of our thoughts and like we're ruminating and we're circling and we're continuing to have the same thought over and over and over. But what happens when you have that thought and you actually like ask the question and then come up with some answers? Then you are going to another level of thinking, right? A deeper level of thinking. And the only way we can stop ruminating over these recurring ideas and thoughts and questions is to actually start answering them. So let's go there. What makes,
Okay.
John, that you actually are the right person for these kids?
I think my experience going through the bullying and like being left like counted out and not really being accepted by everybody else, the minimal friends, I was always different. So I feel like my experience with that and getting through it um, would be able to help these kids like kind of have what I was thinking throughout the whole thing. And since I went through it, I feel like my experience, I would be qualified to be able to help them in that sense.
Right. Yeah. And is there a part of you that feels like because you weren't accepted as a child or had some experience, not so great experiences in elementary school, are you thinking or afraid that like that history will repeat itself if you were to be rejected, to like not be accepted to do this type of work at that school or any school? Like, is there like, are you kind of linking it back to like not wanting to relive a specific experience?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think I've gotten through it. I know it affected me for a long time, but I think now it doesn't affect me as much anymore.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So then, do you feel like you're qualified to do the job because of your experience and your ability to really connect with the subject that you want to talk to them about?
I think so. I think so. I feel like I am qualified. Um, at least for just because I went through the experience. I guess I'm more nervous about like would my message actually connect with them, and then just because I haven't really done a lot of public speaking, I want to make sure that I deliver the message good too. Because if it is the right message, I want to make sure it's delivered right. So I guess I overthink like, is the message I'm hoping to present to them, is it the right message that they need to hear? And would it actually help them in a way?
Right. And then when you say them, like, is the intention to make the message connect with everybody, or is the intention to have the message connect with specific people? Like when you say connect with them, I'm just gonna try to get some clarity around who's them.
That's a good question. That's a
Yeah.
good question because I was just thinking about that. Actually, I can't remember if it was yesterday or the day before. I was thinking about that. Because I've been thinking about it for days now. I've been thinking about, is this message for specific people or can this be for everybody in a way? Because some people, because I've had friends that were, both in my friend group, but also in back then the popular kid group. And I know that they were only in that group because they felt like they had to be accepted. They didn't actually like being friends with those people. They felt like they just had to. And so I feel like in a way it could be for everybody because some of the kids that, that are in those friend groups don't even want to be in that friend group, but they want to do it because they want to feel accepted instead of left out. And
Mhm.
so I feel like it could be everybody. I think even to this day, adults do that too. They want to feel accepted and everything. And so I feel like the message could be for everybody because even if those kids are in those groups, I want them to know that, hey, it's okay. Like if you don't want to be in that group, it's okay to stand out. It's okay to be, counted out, or it's okay not to be in that group. And so I guess in a way it could be for everybody. So and I kind of been tossing that idea. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think even as adults, we tend to think like, oh, if just take it to something simple like putting out a social media post or a reel or,
Mhm.
and then, a lot of people will struggle with creating content, which is technically what you're doing is you're creating content for a specific audience because they'll overthink it. Like, what if we were to approach things with like, it's my responsibility to broadcast my message, but it's not my responsibility in terms of who it lands on, right? Like, so if it
Right,
lands on a specific person, like that's the receptivity of that message is actually not your responsibility, right?
right.
Your responsibility is to communicate it out. So
Mhm.
how does that feel when you think about like who's going to resonate and who's not going to resonate with the messages? Like I'm detached from that outcome. I just need to
I I I am detached from that outcome just because I've had a lot of mentors that have like nailed that message of like you can preach it to everybody, but you can't control who takes it in and who actually puts it into action. I think it was Coach Burt. I've heard Andy Elliott say it too. Like he, Andy Elliott especially has said it a lot of times where, like his message isn't for everybody. Of course, he wants it to be for everybody. He wants everyone to change their lives, but not everyone's going to do it. Not everyone's going to take in the message. And so just because I've had mentors that have talked on that subject a lot, it's sad because I want everyone to change. I really want to impact everybody, but I know not everybody's going to do it. I know people in my personal life that I know that I've tried to help, but they didn't want to do that, do what I've tried to help them in. And it's like, well, I gave you the tools. You have the tools. It all depends on how you're going to use that tools now. So, and I just hope and pray that, hey, now that they have the tools, maybe it's not today that they do it, but hopefully down the road they do it. So I've accepted the fact that not everybody's going to take the action of the tools you give them.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's wonderful. So then what's causing you to overthink around the message? And that if you're the right person and if it's the right message, if you know intellectually that it's not going to land on everyone and that's totally okay. It's not
Mhm.
meant to. It'd be great if it did, but it's not meant to. So where's some of that overthinking and like, overthinking around like whether you're the right person, whether it's going to land, and whether it's the right message? Like, where's that coming from?
Man, I just want to make sure that my message can land with somebody. I'm like, is this the right topic to talk about with kids? I don't know. I guess I just overthinking it, the whole thing. Um, like if it's just gonna be the right message that they're supposed to hear, or if it's the right audience to spread that message to.
Mhm.
Um, so I don't know. I guess I'm just like, doubt myself a little bit or doubt my message a little bit.
Okay, okay. And fair enough, because you've
Mhm.
not yet put that message out there. You don't have
Right.
data that kind of identifies like, oh, this is actually hitting home. And, like you can see that the message is actually impacting people, right? Like this is you starting out from ground zero, right?
It is.
So sometimes we kind of ask ourselves sort of unfair questions because we don't have that experience or, like we haven't had the opportunity to try. So if you were to be able to answer that question, like what would need to happen in order for you to really know whether it is the right message or you are the right person or, like what needs to happen to answer that question?
think just self clarity, just like having confidence in my message and just being like, you know what, even if it just impacts one person, like you did the job because that one person, it could have changed their life.
Mm.
Um, and that's always been the motto I've gone by. I've always wanted to impact people, and I always self doubt. I'm like, well, why if I don't like impact a lot of people? But I've realized, like, you know what? If I impact at least one person and they change their life because of it, like that's success to me. Of course, I want to impact as many people as I can, but if I can just change one person's life, like, there's been mentors that changed my life. Some of their messages didn't land with everybody else, but for me, I'm like, I needed to hear that. So I really, as long as it does it to one kid or one person in the world, I
Yeah.
know that I did something, and that's success to me. I really want other people to live their life to the fullest.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's nice that you're also like, okay, like reality wise, like if I can just help one person, I've literally showed up and done my job, right? And
Right.
and and that's great. That's wonderful because I think at the end of the day, I think, as much as we think big and we have to think big, we want to think big, we also kind of need to think in the moment. Like, if my efforts actually yielded results for someone, then, my efforts are not in vain.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. So, what would help you to gain that self-confidence in your message, in your delivery, in your ability to show up and like pitch yourself? Have someone say, "Yeah, okay, come into the school and like do your talk." Like where do we need to pay closer attention in terms of your level of self-confidence?
Ah, that's a good question because I think it's just more like my limiting beliefs in myself. I I guess I have a bad habit of like needing um I'm trying to think of the right word. um I need someone else's opinion on my message. I don't know that the word I was trying to think of, but always trying to get that confirmation of someone else. Like, hey, do you think this message is going to be the right fit for these kids? So, and that's just something that I struggle with is like not having 100% confidence in my own message and needing someone else's like intake on it.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so in my head, like I know it's bad, but I'm like, I really want to make sure that it is the right message. So I guess having an opinion of someone else's, which is not a good thing, but
Well, I mean, like it's not always bad, right? That's just
right.
you caring, right? I care that I do this right and I get this right. So I would love to have someone be my sounding board. I would love feedback,
Mhm.
that's you showing that you are, coachable, right? And you're open to feedback and constructive criticism and whatever else, like you're open to that because you're actually committed to growth and producing something of high quality. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, you can get all the feedback, but ultimately you decide, right? You
Right.
decide what you want to change, what you want to keep the same. Because at the end of the day, if you stay true to you and your message and what sound like it may sound good, but it might not feel good, right? Because this is something that's personal to you that you're sharing. You're sharing your personal journey, right? Your triumphs, your challenges, and you're trying to stay as authentic as possible to that audience, right? So
Correct.
so really like your self-confidence ultimately is going to be rooted in like how you show up for you and for other people. The feedback along the way is, it's great to get feedback, but ultimately you decide what it is that you want to share, right? And what you feel comfortable with.
Right. Right. I agree. I agree. I just gotta give that self confidence in it.
I mean, I think to a certain extent, I think everybody, when starting something new, will struggle with self-confidence. And like some people have been doing things for years and they still struggle with self-confidence. But if we can tie our like struggle with self-confidence to like, actually, I just really care that I do a good job, that I show
Mhm.
up, powerfully, that I deliver an impactful message, like sometimes we're struggling with like trying to get it as perfect as possible because we think if it's perfect, then we're confident, right?
Right.
The confidence really comes from like within. Am I secure within myself? Am I comfortable in my own skin?
Mhm.
Can I have the courage to be vulnerable and show up, right? I think like self-confidence will come from your ability to be exactly who you are, right? Because when we struggle
Right.
with self-confidence, sometimes it's because we are trying to be someone we're actually not meant to be. And then we struggle because we widen the gap with like how we're showing up and who we actually are. But when you show up in your authentic being, self-confidence appears naturally.
That is true. That is true. I you nailed it right on the head. I do know like whenever I am my authentic self, that is when I'm more like confident and more smooth with my words because it's tattooed on my heart. So I
Yeah.
I agree. I
And,
agree.
and it becomes sort of second nature. It's like, do you think about breathing? No. Do you think about being you? Probably not, because it's like, it's who you are. You're just used to it. You're comfortable in who you are, right? But then
Right.
if we start comparing ourselves and like, okay, and then we start to set like some unrealistic expectations upon ourselves, then we start to lose self-confidence because now we're trying to set like the bar really, really high. And then we're like, okay, but we're not there yet. Am I going to be a great speaker? Am I going to impact people? Am I going to give the right message? Is this the right audience? Am I, like when we start asking
Yeah.
all questions, we start getting in our heads, right? And at the end of the day, what you want to deliver is your
Correct.
message, your energy, your authenticity, right? So is that something that you can deliver on? Can you deliver on being you?
I think so. Yeah. I would say so. Especially if it's that message. I just know that I'm so confident and like or at least I'm just such a believer in it. I guess I doubt like is it the right audience? Like is it the right age that I'm supposed to be talking to? Like that's the thing that I'm doubting is the message to the audience. Like, is it the right message that I need to speak to the audience? Because I 100% believe in the message in general, and I'm
Yeah.
very passionate about it. I think I'm coming to a realization. Like, is it the right message for the right audience? Because I think it is an amazing message, but is it the right people I'm supposed to be talking to? I guess it's the clarity of like what audience should it be for? Should it be for the college kids? Is it supposed to be for the high school kids? Is it supposed to be for the elementary kids? Is it supposed to be for all of them? Is it only supposed to be for specific? Because I'm like, maybe our elementary school kids a little too young to understand this. Like maybe it could impact a couple kids, but I guess is it the right message for that audience or for high school? So I guess I'm lacking the clarity of what audience should it be? Is it for all of them? Is it only for some particular ones? Because there's other messages I do want to spread. I guess it's just like, is this the right message? Because this is the one that's been on my heart the most,
Right.
especially lately.
Yeah, no, and then those are really great questions because like you're trying to pair the message with the right target group, right? So that
Right.
it has the maximum impact that it could have. So as you ask that question, like what can help bring more clarity to deciding on like where does this message belong? What needs like what do you need to do? What needs to happen? How do we discover if this is the right message to the right group?
That's a good question. That's a good question. Because I know I'm confident that it would resonate with like college kids. I know for sure because I without me even realizing it, I've actually been talking about this message for a couple of years now. And the only reason why it's been tattooed on my heart lately is because my best friend mentioned something to me. He goes, "Dude, like I literally want to be starting a business right now. If you didn't tell me that I was meant to stand out." He goes, "You made me believe years ago." He's like, "You've been my coach this entire time." He goes, "Every time I'm doubting myself," and this like really made me realize like, okay, maybe I should become a coach. And this was a week ago too. He goes, every time I doubt myself, I don't even talk to myself. Like I hear your voice on what you would tell me to do because you're the one that told me to think bigger. He goes, you made me believe that I was supposed to stand out and be special. I wasn't supposed to fit in because I was supposed to be a 1% person, not a 99% person. So then I started thinking like, okay, so this message would resonate someone that's around my age because it's resonating with him. And so I'm confident in that part. So I guess I need to figure out in a way, like how can I would this message resonate with kids younger? So I don't know if I need to maybe network with some teachers like in an elementary school because that's where the kids are spending the most time and seeing like, hey, like here's my message. Do you think this would resonate with some kids? Because it doesn't have to resonate with everybody. Of course, this is for everybody, but I want it to at least resonate with one kid. I want one kid to take what I've taught and implement in their life. Do you think this is something that can be done? And just network with those teachers. Um, maybe that's not a good idea, but I'm like, I think that might be a good idea.
Yeah.
So maybe doing that just because they are with those kids and they've been teaching those group of kids for a long time. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, I have younger siblings as well, so maybe like trying to see if like teaching them this message, see how they respond to it. Of course, they're going to be different from everybody else. You know, maybe one kid does take it and they don't. So I guess doing that too. I think those are a couple of ideas. I guess I don't have too many, too many. So
It's a great start. I mean, it sounds like you already know who the message resonates with, right? People
mhm,
your age category. And on top of that, you're trying to find ways to understand like who else would this message resonate with?
right.
Yeah. And no, those are some really, really great ideas to start with. And like, would you be open like to the idea of like just starting where you're at, working with people that are in your age category that you know you can help? Like, do you,
I would be confident in it.
okay, okay. And confident, like, why would you feel confident in starting with your own age category?
I think because I've had the experience of helping my best friend in a way, and then there's a person that I grew up in high school who reached out to me for some advice because he was wanting to. It's funny because he was one of the kids that actually like was like part of like that 99%, and he goes, dude, like he goes, I've always been inspired by you because you always stood out from everybody. Like you like were okay with not being everybody else, which I actually struggled with it for a long time, but you know, my last few years of high school, I finally accepted the fact I'm not like everybody else. And he goes, he's like, I've always like was inspired by you. I know I didn't talk to you a lot, but I always was inspired. So I've had actually a few people like that have reached out to me. Even the kids actually bullied me in middle school and elementary school. I've had them DM me on Instagram, like, oh my gosh, like one of the things I liked about you. And this isn't me trying to like be like, have an
That's
ego. This is just something I've had like happen. And so it's made me realize that maybe I can impact people that are my age. They go, man, I wish I stood out just like you instead of like trying to be like everybody else. And so like, how did you do it? And so I think just because some people have asked me about it, and then I have helped my best friend through it, I think I can I can like teach the kids that are like about my age because a lot of them are starting to realize like, man, maybe I shouldn't have done these things or with these people. Like, and so I think if I can teach them my mindset of like where I was at, why I was able to navigate through school and even adulthood on like standing out, they'll be able to resonate a lot more with it.
yeah, yeah. So if you were to start there, starting with your own age category, because you know you can impact people, mostly because you've already seen it happen, how
Right.
would that affect your level of confidence in reaching other groups and cohorts in the future if you were to start where you already know that you can have an impact?
I think I'd be a lot more confident in reaching out to other age groups and different audiences because I've built that credibility of like, hey, like I was able to help these people. And so if you can get actual results, I think the more results someone gets or the more wins they get under their belt, the more confident they get. I think that's with everybody. And that's for me personally. Like when I first start out something, I get like I get you know very self doubtful, but once I start getting good at something or start seeing results, then I'm like, okay, you know, I can do this. Like I'm proving to myself right now I can do it. So we can do this. So I think if I can target that audience and actually be successful at it, I would have a lot more tools on my tool belt, a lot more credibility, and a lot more confidence doing it with other age groups.
Right. Yeah. So when you were thinking at the beginning of our call, like, where do I start? Are you getting any more clarity on where to start? Who to
I
connect?
I am. You're asking good questions, so it's making me it's making me like have a whole different perspective. So, you're good at what you do. You're a life changer for sure.
That's very kind of you, very generous of you to say. I mean, I have the questions, but what I truly believe, John, is that you have all the answers you need. If we just, try to dial down the overthinking and like use the overthinking as clues in terms of like what our brain needs in terms of answers. You have all those questions, it's because our mind is looking for answers. So if we start answering those questions, we actually start cooling down the overthinking because we're actually reaching a destination. Like we're okay, here we go. We've made a decision, right? Okay, I'm deciding that I'm going to target my target group, because, oh, I've helped my friend. I'm seeing results. This can work, right? And then so sometimes when we have too many options, like, do I focus on this group, that group? Like we basically start to confuse ourselves because we have too many open loops and we're not closing any of them, which kind of brings us into the, analysis paralysis, unable to kind of
Yeah.
land on anything. But if you just try to take that one open loop and like brainstorm some ideas around why do we have the question, what it like, and it sounded like it was kind of leading you to your self-confidence, and your self-confidence was leading to like, okay, well, when I see results, then I'll be more confident. When when I can get more wins, I'll know that this is working. So sometimes, that question is really just leading you to the answer, right? So, I
Right.
mean, it's great that you're kind of landing on like, okay, I actually do want to start here because this is important to me, right? Seeing results, creating an impact, and building my self-confidence to be able to reach the next group of people. So when you talk about game plan, what's that going to look like for you? Because accountability is a big part of coaching. It's great to have the
Mhm.
revelations and understand like where some of our struggles are coming from and come up with some, viable solutions. But what's most important is action and accountability. So
Yes.
what are you learning about yourself? Number one. And how are you going to use those learnings into action? Like, what are you going to do about those learnings?
I'm learning for myself that I've had a lot of answers. I just haven't been asking myself the right questions or any questions at all. I've just been trying to seek answers without questions. And so you've made me realize that I just need to start asking myself more questions because maybe I already have the answers. And now that you've asked me these questions, and now that I have more clarity on like what audience to go for or who can I impact now, I'm starting to develop this game plan in my head. I'm thinking about social media right now. Instead of being like someone that's waiting, I want to just start pursuing. And so while I'm instead of just waiting to hear back from these schools after I reach out, I should already start doing other things too. So I've been thinking like a lot of my followers are still people, like a lot of my followers on Instagram and Facebook, they are people that I've networked with, and they're coaches and sales trainers and salespeople, because that's been the industry I've been in. There's still a lot of people that are still following me from even high school, and still message me from high school. So I already have the audience following me. So while I'm waiting to go for these schools and get a speaking arrangement, starting making content, because I already have the people that I want to impact already following me. And so starting to make that content towards them, is something I can just already do now because I have the audience already. Um, so I'm thinking about making some content and making social media and starting YouTube too as well, and marketing that on my content so I can bring my audience all, from my Instagram and my Facebook to my YouTube for my longer form content. So that's something that after you've been asking me these questions, that I'm like, okay, this is something I can do now. Am I the best video editor? Heck no, but it'll be something I can learn and trial and do trial and error with. So that's something that's already a game plan in my head. Taking action now because I can. And so that's I think that's one of my number one game plans is just starting now on social media.
Okay, I love that. That's something like that's a concrete action step. And if we were to apply some metrics to that action, by when do you think you can post a piece of content on social media? And how many pieces of content are you looking to post? Like, say, by next week. or by in 2 weeks, whatever that looks like what does that look like for you? So that when we get to that date, we can look back and say, did we do what we committed to doing? If yes, awesome.
Mhm.
And if no, let's look at what got in the way so that we can continue to move forward. So what kind of
Yeah.
commitment do you make?
I'll start small. I'll start small, just because I haven't done it before. I've never like I have one time. There was one time where I did do a Facebook Live and I taught like time management and time blocking, and I got a lot of feedback from it. Um, I was really passionate about the topic a while back. It was a little over a year ago, and I got a lot of feedback from it. It was just something I was passionate about. But just starting small, I think like maybe even starting this week, like maybe one content piece a week. Um, I think just to start out, because I don't want to shoot for something big and then just not even get it. Because that's what I do all the time. I always have these big goals and I chase them. I don't get them. And I'm like, dang it, man. I'm like, why didn't you get it? And I beat myself up for it. So just starting small. So especially because it's something new to me. If I start small, I can deliver a good message each week. And while I'm like preparing for that message, I can learn other skills too on like video editing and marketing. How can I get this out to more people in this audience? So just having that whole week to prepare for it, and then just putting out content, and then continuing to learn on what message do I want to spread next.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I love that idea of starting small because a lot of the times, like what we really want to see is like we want to actually do what we said we were going to do to build that confidence within
Mhm.
ourselves, right? Which is like keeping the promises that we make. That's number one. Number two, you also want to see what's happening, right? Is there engagement? Is it landing? Who's it landing? And that'll give you a lot of
Right.
insights on whether or not the content is the right content and
Mhm.
also who's most impacted by this content. So a lot of the questions that you had in your mind at the beginning of the call, you're actually able to find the answers by just putting something out there, right? And getting started and then waiting for that feedback to come in so that you can start answering those questions that you have. So
Right.
I really do like that. And I like that you're coming out with the idea of like, let me start small and let me see how this goes. And I think that that's great because that's what will build the momentum that you need to actually keep going. So at the beginning of our call, you talked about a game plan, wanting to know like, who am I targeting? Am I the right person? Right? Is this the right group of people? Am I doing the right thing? Is it the right message? And now by the end of our call, you've given us some really great insights on what you're doing, when are you going to do it by, who are you targeting, where are you going, social media, like you have some really concrete answers. So how are you feeling about where you're at right now?
So much better. You have no idea like how I feel. It's like I feel so much fire and passion, and it's like I feel so like happy. I've been so happy. Like I feel so like this is what I've been wanting to do, and it feels good to actually like know that I can get started now. Because that's just the biggest thing that's been bugging me for months and months and months is just the feeling of like, do I start now or do I wait? And so it feels good to actually think like there is people I can impact, and it feels good I can start now because this has just been something I've been wanting to do for the longest time, and so it feels really really good. I have a lot more clarity and confidence in doing it, and so it's like, oh, all this weight's off my chest. Like I can breathe.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we can like down all that anxiety and overthinking and like so much of our energy goes towards the things that actually aren't serving us when that energy could have been conserved and pointed towards moving you forward, and not only moving you forward but as you move forward you're actually helping other people along the way, like that is the nicest feeling when you can do really good things for yourself and help other people, like it's it's a win-win all around all the
Yeah.
time, and that feels good. And then if we can go off of those emotions and those feelings, we will continue to build and grow and impact more people because it's like we're always feeding off of that positive energy, like we're getting the results and we want to create more and think bigger and dream bigger, and like that's, sometimes the hardest thing is just to get started. Like just start, get out of your head, get into your heart, start. And once you start, it's so much harder to stop than it is to just start. So stopping is not
Yes.
with starting.
Yes.
What it sounds
I
like you're ready.
I am, and it feels good to think that way. And I know there's going to be trials and errors. I know that not every message I'm going to do is going to be 100% good, you know. But I know just like going for it, like that's what matters. Like I said, if it just changes that one person's life,
Yeah.
that was my whole goal anyway. And so, um, just having that mindset and just continue to have that mindset of just changing one person's life, just change one person's life.
Yeah.
It feels good that I can maybe resonate with somebody.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And what you said just kind of this quote went into my mind where it was like, I read this thing that said, like, you don't have to be good to start, but you got to start to get good, right? Like,
Yeah, I love it.
we just got to start. Awesome. John, thank you for your time. I'm really glad that you got what you needed out of this session. Is there anything else that I can do to support you?
You've done so much for me. It means a lot. Thank you so much. You really like helped me. Like this is going to change my life, and so you're awesome. You've been the most impactful mentor I've ever had. So
Oh my goodness. It's my absolute pleasure to serve you, John. So thank you for saying that. That's very kind. Okay, well, till next time, be well and talk to you soon.
all right, thank you so much, Mary. Thank you.
Bye, John.